welcome to the show with me, Dan, and my guest for a second time, Mr. Nick Twigger.
What up?
Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, man.
Yeah, no, it's great. I've been given some feedback from people, various bits of...
And the feedback is, you're a twat.
Yeah, you were rubbish. So this was me just telling you that you can't come back, and that's the end of the podcast.
Oh, fun podcast.
No, as a general, because I've released, the ones that I've released, people have said they would. Some people have said they would like a bit of an introduction to who is on, because obviously I know who you are. I hope you know who you are, but it gives the listeners a bit of context. So a very short introduction. I'll just say how I know Nick. So I met Nick at uni. What were you studying? What was the name of your course?
For my undergrad, it was computer gameplay design and production.
Oh, okay, a lot more complicated. I was just going to say games. He was studying games.
That's true.
And you now do that as a profession. You work for Ubisoft.
I currently work for Ubisoft as an associate producer.
Cool. That's we met at uni in first year. We were in the same halls together, and we had a lot of love and respect for each other, even though you probably wouldn't have admitted the love part of it at the time.
We definitely didn't really see eye to eye at first.
Oh, really?
It was really, we grew. I think we grew much closer as university went on.
I was clearly naive to that. So let me just go back and change that. So I had love and respect for Nick at the start, but it was not reciprocated. But no, yeah. So we either way, we formed a good friendship, and we've carried on our friendship afterwards. The reason I wanted Nick on the podcast originally in the first episode, and continuing to want him on, was actually nothing to do with his games and his profession. It was more to do with our conversations and our relationship in general. We seem to have an agreement about wanting to find the truth of the situation or a subject, and we both have some strong beliefs. We both like to do research, and we also have a good laugh as well. So I thought Nick was one of the first people I thought when doing this podcast. I thought it would just be really interesting. And when we disagree, we really go all in, and we're happy to disagree, and it doesn't affect our friendship. So yeah, that's basics of why I wanted Nick on and how we met. I can tell by Nick's silence that he disagrees with all of that.
But I mean, the reason I keep doing these is because we every time we seem to be on the phone with each other, it's like a 3-hour conversation. I always feel like I learned something. So when you said you were doing a podcast, I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I'll be down for that.
Sweet. Cool. Well, this episode is a bit different. It's the first episode of its kind for Along the Lines. And it's, if you haven't heard of it, there's something online called the Political Compass. From my point of view, it's a bit of fun. It's not anything to be taken too seriously, but it sort of puts you on you answer a load of questions, and then it puts you on a scale. The up and down scale is authoritarian is up, and then libertarian is down. So authoritarian, I sort of interpret that as large government that is much more imposing and much more in control, and libertarian is a small government that's not, just lets people get on with whatever they want to do. And then the horizontal axis is left and right, so it's like left-wing economics and right-wing economics. So I guess right-wing is more free market, less restrictions, and left-wing is more sort of socialism, going that way, sort of public funding public services and things like that. But yeah, so me and Nick both like chatting about politics occasionally. I thought this would be a good idea just to go through each of the questions in the political compass and just chat about each one and just see where we end up, because I think it'll just be interesting to go there. What do you reckon?
Sounds good to me.
Cool. Well, I'll just start by saying what our scores were last time, which were pretty close. If you're watching this or listening to this on YouTube, then I'll put them on the screen, mine and Nick's previous results. And if you're listening to this on just an audio platform, then you can just nip over to YouTube. But yeah, so we were both more libertarian than authoritarian. So I was like three points down on the libertarian scale, and Nick was 5, so he was more libertarian than me. And I was just under 2 points left. And Nick was right on the line, and you're just nudging slightly left, which you were quite surprised about, weren't you?
Yeah, I thought if anything, I'd be further right than center left, but yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. Sweet. So that's just a little introduction, and should we crack on with the questions?
Let's jump into it. What is the first question?
So the first question is: if globalisation is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. And then there's 4 for each question. There's 4 options: strongly disagree, disagree, agree, strongly agree. So it's quite simple. There's no like not sure option.
So
So
for me, it would definitely be like an agree, not a strongly agree, but an agree to this.
yeah, I think it's a little like all of these questions. They're always going to be a little bit tongue in cheek. They're not to be taken too seriously, because I mean, what I'd say about this is that transnational corporations and any corporation or any institution, even the NHS, can serve humanity in some way, sort of indirectly.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one to say, like, yeah, transnational corporations don't serve humanity, because indirectly they do anyway. Yeah, I think that's been something that I've changed my mind about over the years, is actually the importance of large corporations.
Yeah, I think everyone's got to appreciate that the larger a body of people, the more capable they are and the more together they can achieve.
Mm,
I mean, it goes without saying there's also problems that come with that. But you know, to be just totally anti-corporation is to me a very foolish mindset.
yeah, and it's some of the things it provides are like jobs. It provides I mean, I think the perfect example is Bill Gates. Like, what he's done with his money in terms of philanthropy is just unbelievable.
Yeah, he actually recently stepped down from the board of Microsoft to focus on his philanthropy.
Yeah, yeah, and Microsoft. Obviously, if he didn't have Microsoft, he wouldn't be where he is now, and he wouldn't be helping all the people that he is.
He's a very impressive man.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you'd like to comment on that at all?
No, well, what were you thinking? Were you kind of feeling a soft agree with this as well?
Yeah, yeah. I think because I don't strongly agree, because transnational corporations can help a lot of humanity. So sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
So we agree on agree. Okay. So question number 2 is: I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. Whether it was right or wrong.
Strongly disagree. Like, kind of question is this?
Yeah, I guess.
Like, if you think your country's wrong, why would, if you think like a decision or a general theme in your country was wrong, but you still support that? I feel like that's kind of how Hitler got into power.
Yeah, yeah. Good point. Yeah, I guess this feeds into the whole nationalism thing of like, you stick by your country no matter what.
Oh, nationalism is like the most retarded thing that's got to be going. Like, what, just because you were born on this patch of land and you are essentially ruled by a bunch of people you don't know, strangers, like why would you be supportive of that? Like when I think, like, we're both from the UK, and when I think of England, I think, man, England does a lot of stuff good. It's also got some areas where it should really improve because it's lacking right now. Things like the gap between rich and poor and what have you. But for me to just be like, no, I'm pro UK no matter what, like, what are you talking about?
I guess like the military sort of have to be like that though, don't they? There's a
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there's a thing of you get trained to obey orders no matter what. I mean
I
I've
can
never been in the
see,
military.
me neither, but I could see why that's valuable to people in the military. Um, yeah, in the military, they often don't have a lot of time, from what I understand, to enact things, and time is very much of the essence. So it's not like a time for people to question. It's like, hey, dude, we've just got to do this. Get on it now.
Hmm. Yeah, but I think I guess we both agree on that it's I mean if a country, unless you're in the military and you have to follow orders, like if you can see that your country is doing something that you completely disagree with, um, then you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to stick with the side of it. Sweet. Okay, so we both so we say strongly agree on that.
Oh, I strongly disagree.
Or strongly. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I strongly agree. Nah, yeah. So strongly disagree. Yeah. Sorry.
Next one.
Cool. No one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it.
Think like, oh, am I proud of the UK? I think there's some stuff it does good, like the NHS. No one, no one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I think that's an agree. I think yeah, it's a soft agree because I think there are elements of your country that you can be proud of, but at the same time, to be like, oh, I'm so proud because I'm from this nation. It's like, well, it's a patch of dirt that you were born on, nothing more.
Yeah. I think this sort of ties in back to the nationalism thing. But I think it's difficult because it's a whole idea of pride. Like, pride in a negative form is like sort of egotistical and putting your own, putting seeing yourself elevated a lot higher than you actually are. Um,
Yeah, I don't think I'm proud of my country of birth at all. I wouldn't brag about being from England or kind of let that feed my ego and fool me into thinking that I'm actually more impressive than I actually am just because I'm from a wealthy nation.
mm. But I guess there's a healthy pride. There's what I would say is a healthy pride is like um, sort of my grandparents' pride of how we dealt with the war and pride in our national institutions like the NHS.
Yeah,
So it's a difficult one, isn't it? Yeah. So what?
I
What?
can see for me it's a soft degree.
Okay.
Like yeah, because I can see the flip side. But I just think so many things, or the vast majority of things that your country does, you're not doing that, and generally you don't have any input or say. So why would you be proud of the end result? This
Sure.
is like people are going to hate this. This is like when someone goes to see their football team play and they're proud to support their football team because their football team wins. But it's like, right, but you didn't fucking do anything. Those bunch of 11 players won while you sat there and watched.
Yeah. Yeah. It's feeling part of it, I guess.
I guess.
Okay. Cool. So that's I think we're on the same page with that as well. So agree. Um, our race has many superior qualities compared to other races.
So
Uh,
it's worth mentioning we're both white. Here's the weird thing about this question. It's strongly disagree from me, but if I
yes.
was black, I would be saying strongly agree. The reason for that being is I think it's very fair to say that people of African American or African DNA more in them just seem to be physically bigger, physically stronger, physically faster. You look at the NFL, the NBA, the UFC, the majority of the top tier athletes are black.
mm. Yeah, I don't know about that, to be honest, in terms of genetically or anything else. What the differences are.
I, I don't I don't know anything for sure. I'm just like I watch a fair amount of martial arts and a fair amount of American football as well, and just the biggest dudes are the black dudes there. It's like if I don't know if you know this UFC fighter called Francis Ngannou. The dude's massive. It's just like unrealistically big.
Sweet. Okay, so that's a strong disagree from us then.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's certain ethnicities that have certain advantages in certain areas. Do I think any one race is superior generally, except for blacks being generally physically better? No.
and I don't know about um, genetically, right? Like, there's differences in nationalities because there's there's a difference in how, the culture you grow up in and the sort of values you have and the sort of norm for your parents to be and things like that. So there I can see there being, but I've recently finished a book about genetics, and it doesn't in terms of genetics like there's pretty much nothing to say about race. Um, there's a lot more to be said about other factors. But yeah, so we strongly disagree with that one.
Yeah.
Um, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
I'm not proud of this, but that's an Augustoff degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just here's the problem. I'm a very driven person. If I want to get something done, if someone is in my way, it's like a focus point for me of, all right, I need to get on this. I don't want to get it done. And I've had issues in the past where someone has pissed me off, and like I know we've got mutual friends that don't really like them anymore, so I'll kind of latch on to them. If
Okay.
that makes any sense.
Yeah. So wait. So elaborate a little bit. So why? How does that tie in with it?
Because you find like the fact of the matter is there are bad people on this planet as much as I don't think they're very common. There are a couple of people I've met where I'm like, yeah, that's a very damaged person right there for whatever reason, and very toxic in nature. And if this generally only comes in when someone's trying to block me, if I'm trying to really do something and focus on something, and then someone's trying to get in the way of that, I will look for any means necessary to get them out of the way.
Any means necessary.
I mean, obviously that's hyperbole, and I wouldn't, I would, yeah, I'm very anti-violence. I don't want any of that shit. But anything that doesn't involve someone getting hurt, yeah, I'm down for that.
Okay. 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 So you're ruthless to a point. As long as no one gets hurt, you're full go.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't necessarily think that's a good thing, and it's definitely one of my drawbacks. I think as a person. But to answer it honestly, that's what I think.
um, I think this is somewhere where I'm gonna have to disagree. Because well, it's difficult. Again, if we're talking about it on a political or personal level, um, yeah, I think if you've got the enemy of the enemy, um, isn't
I guess
necessary.
it's then ignoring whether or not the enemy of your enemy, what that kind of person's like. You're just totally accepting, well, I guess because this guy is going to help me out and be on my side and help tear this other person down
Mm,
or raise me up or whatever. I don't need to worry about if they're good, if they're bad, their agenda, their motives, whatever.
yeah, and you might be at war with
Yeah,
someone about one subject, and then the person be at war with someone else about another subject, but then doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to agree with that person that the enemy of the enemy.
you know what? You've convinced me here. I'm going to go with disagree.
Sweet.
Because yeah, I can. Yeah, I knew it from the start, but I'm like, oh, I kind of have to say my piece on this anyway.
Okay, cool. I've convinced you. 1-0.
Yeah.
Cool. So yes, we both disagree on that. Um, Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified.
So the issue is I've never been in the military, so it's difficult to make. I would go soft agree.
Yeah, I'm
I
inclined.
think
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
because I can see a circumstance where it's real dire circumstances. I'm talking like Hollywood action movie type thing here. The world is in jeopardy or some shit, and you maybe have to do some things that humanity right now thinks we're above to get the end result you need. I can envision that happening, and the way this is worded is it says sometimes military action is that defies international law is sometimes justified. So I could see a case for that. So agree.
Yeah, and it all depends on the justification, doesn't it? It's I know that
It's very context based, I guess.
like Israel has been um, well, the government of Israel has been defying international law for a long time in terms of annexing. Um, uh, oh wow, I just had a blank. Palestine. So they've been moving into Palestinian territory, which has been time and time again been told it's defying international law.
Unlawful, yeah.
So in that sense, I disagree with it. But when you've got a country like North Korea, um, and which are so different in terms of our values, which shouldn't, in theory, having difference in values shouldn't be. But I think when you have your values and you have your beliefs, and then that's in direct opposition to someone else's, I'm sure naturally going to come into conflict. Especially
Yeah.
with something like North Korea, you've got a country as free as the UK, and then you've got North Korea, which pretty much shits over all human rights. Um, so yeah, I think in that scenario, if North Korea, if we've got like intelligence that North Korea were planning some crazy attack on like a European country or something, or
And
the
they and they
UK.
and they've got like a North Korea spy who's got all the intel. They don't have a lot of time to get him out of him, so they've got to break the torture rules or whatever.
Yeah. So I think like you
It's a
say,
very, very soft degree.
yeah, yeah, um, yeah, and I think international law is, unfortunately, it doesn't have much power because that's
Yeah,
clear
the
with the whole
EU are
Israel.
very, not the EU, sorry, the UN are relatively toothless from what I understand.
Yeah. Um, so it's yeah, but I think in general the sentiment and the laws have been well thought out, and they're trying to create world peace in a sense. So yeah, I think I would like you say softly agree with that, um, and the key word being sometimes justified. Sweet. Okay, number 7. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment.
Hmm. I can see where this is coming from. I think this would be a soft disagree for me
Okay, why's that?
because I can appreciate that, news sources are now more and more news sources look like they get things wrong or they're biased or they're skewing things a different way. And I think, oh, is that really what this is saying though? There's
It's
now a
difficult,
worrying,
isn't it? Because you've got to interpret what they're trying to get across.
yeah, there is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. So I guess that's like when a news channel, it's got all these flashy graphics and it's almost kind of marketed towards a certain demographic and things like that. But then again, I do think it's best to leave the people presenting to present how they want to present. It's a soft disagree for me. I can see where it's coming from, but I don't think it's this is that big of a deal, really. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult to find the truth online for things. I think that's definitely true, but I don't think that's due to a fusion of information and entertainment.
I think I agree with this on a psychological level. On a wider level, I'm not so sure. I might agree with what you're saying, like so disagree being the answer. But the reason I might say soft agree is psychologically, I think it can be misconstrued, and I think if they're fused too much and they're not, the line isn't drawn in your mind about where entertainment ends and information begins, then you're picking, then you get confused, and then anything that's entertaining, you're taking as information. Um, and I think psychologically, um, there is a worry for that. I think when I think of that, I think of like newspapers like the Sun and the Mail, and the news channel like Fox in America. Um, they are made to be entertaining. They're made to be very readable and watchable. In the newspapers, especially like the Sun, it's big headlines. It's simple words. It's got loads of like gossip parts of it. It's they've got the page three model. Um, but then if you think that it's a reliable source of information because it's entertaining, or naturally you're drawn to it for entertainment, and then you start to believe some of the things it's saying, then
Also, because
psychologically,
it's sorry to interrupt. So because it's entertaining to you, you kind of lower your defenses and just assume what it's saying is true without really pushing the matter. That
yeah,
could then lead them to sway facts or curb public opinion.
yeah, which I guess actually then says that that's not so much their fault. It's our fault to get sucked into it because like
It's a give and take, right? I think there's fault on both parts.
yeah, because I completely agree that if you're trying to get information across, it needs to be entertaining. I
Yeah,
100% agree with that.
yeah.
Like if you have um
A
uh
podcast.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't know which one side of the fence it's moving. Maybe it's hitting neither. Maybe it's neither informative nor entertaining. The podcast I'm putting out. So, but yeah, if I just sat here or had someone on the show and they just said information from a science report for an hour, the information may be amazing. It may be really enlightening. It may be something you've never heard before. It may change a lot of things, how you view the world. But if they're sitting there just quoting statistics, they're talking in a really monotonous voice, and they don't have any sort of consideration for it, people actually wanting to listen and it being somewhat entertaining, then it's almost useless. Um,
Yeah, I can see that. It,
so
it's
yeah,
it's a very like I could see both sides.
mm,
I think generally I disagree because I think that even like news stations like the BBC, which aren't really that swaying towards the entertainment side, are still biased. Yeah, so yeah, I still think there's a problem with getting correct and true and honest and unbiased information out, but I don't think it's a problem with. I don't think the big problem is that it's merged with entertainment.
right, okay. Um, just on that point, what's your so in what ways do you think the BBC are biased, or is it just like story by story? You don't feel like they actually.
Well, a I wasn't aware of this until because I work at Ubisoft. I work with quite a few French people, and I was never aware of this until I really started working with them and talking to them because our news in this country is really fucking weird. The headlines are skewed, obviously, to overinflate things and really skew things in a negative. I don't even know why, and apparently that doesn't really happen in France.
Oh, really?
For example, the BBC. I'm not going to be able to find the article right now, but this was a few years back now when the CEO of Lloyd's TSB had like a mental break or something, like he had to step down because the pressure really got to him. And the way a BBC article worded the headline on the website was Lloyd's boss fails stress test or something like that. And
Wow.
all I could think was, what are you? That's a human being, and I would imagine being the CEO of a bank is very, very difficult. Don't get me wrong, very rewarding, but very, very difficult. And you're just shitting on this guy and publicizing his failure
Mm.
or his struggle. Sorry, I shouldn't have said failure. That was kind of incorrect on my part.
Yeah.
So yeah, so when people the fact that people believe, or generally people believe, that the BBC is an unbiased news source, I think get the hell out of here. They're looking to promote your outrage, in my opinion.
Well, I think
Oh, go on.
I
Sorry,
don't.
I was just going to say that
Sorry.
it's not all. Oh, sorry, it's not just the BBC that does this. Every major newspaper in the UK, probably except for the Independent, because they're just like, hey, stop killing the pandas. But the vast majority, at least, are. And it's man, if you just look at some news stories online for a second and just try and look at them without the constant kind of noise news you've got going on in the background all the time, you sit there and go, oh, fuck, this is a really cunty way to word this.
I love that. Like the swear word meter has sort of gone up now.
Oh,
Just
sorry.
straight on the c word. That was yeah. Any sort of more conservative minded or less sweary members of our listeners would look have just dropped off, Jose. But
I can apologize. I will try to swear less.
that's cool. Yeah, but I don't think that's a problem with bias. I think that's a problem with trying to get clicks, trying to get or an audience, trying to entertain. I don't think that's a bias problem. I think that's just trying to do a shocking headline, trying to do a shocking thing, which I do agree the BBC fall prey to it. But that's not necessarily that means that they're biased, is it?
Um, I think if you're trying to overinflate things and hyperbolize things more than they are, I think that's biased to me.
Okay.
Because well, maybe it's not biased, but maybe it's you've got an agenda,
Mm,
and I don't like it if journalists have agendas
right.
because that's prone to bias, maybe.
Right. Sure. Okay. That's an interesting point. Yeah. Um, but I do think. See, I personally love the BBC. But I'm only really comparing that to like a few other countries, especially America.
Well,
Um,
America, I don't know. I don't even understand what America does. You've got Fox, you've got CNN. No one seems to trust any publication in America either.
yeah. So, mm, it is an interesting, and it's a dilemma I think for every journalist. Is how do I get this story out and this information out, but how do I get people to actually read it?
Well, maybe that's where this is coming in. That the entertainment problem is
Mm,
the fact that we kind of generally we judge entertainment in forms of money, and generally we judge that in terms of how many viewers something gets.
mm,
So if you're a journalist and someone's like, oh, that article you wrote on our website only got 800 clicks, what the fuck? You're
mm.
gonna look for any, and people are kind of dumb. If you put shiny things in front of them, they'll follow them.
Mm. Which is a
So
really difficult one because if you've got if you're struggling as a newspaper or you're struggling as a channel, which I really hope the Daily Mail and the Sun are, but yeah, if you're struggling, then it's a lot more likely that you will lower your standards just to make sure you're getting people. Because if it's going to mean the end of your business, then a lot of people would just go, I'm just going to lower my standards, and just so I can get people to buy and to click. And
yeah, it's kind of an unfortunate truth, I suppose.
yeah. Cool. So back to the question. So there is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Um, I would say agree.
I would I would go soft disagree on that.
Okay, cool, sweet. So that was the first page. Oh, I forgot to say the title of that page, but it says how you see the country and the world. Okay. Um, so I guess we're sort of zeroing in as we go along, maybe. Cool. So that's the first page. The next page, the title is Now the Economy. We're talking attitudes here, not the FTSE index. So it's more, yeah, it's more sort of people's attitudes towards how the economy should be run, as opposed to like details of, how high the interest rate should be and things like that. So the top, um, people are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality.
Mm, would I agree with this? I think because here's the problem, right? You've got relatively wealthy nations, which will have their, a divide between poor and rich, as the same way all countries do. So if we're talking rich countries, we're talking North America, Europe, Australia, Japan. That's probably it, to be honest. And the wealth, either the class system there is very different compared to say the classes in an African nation or an Asian nation or even a South American nation.
Right.
So I think generally people are going to be more divided by their nationality because generally their nationality defines their class.
Okay, that's interesting. So I would say the opposite. Um, I think people are divided more by their class than their nationality.
How
Um,
so? Why do you believe that?
so my reasoning is, and I'm just coming up with this on the spot, as I'm sure you are as well. But um, if you get two people to come together, and let's say they're at the extremes of each, so you have an extremely wealthy person and then an extremely poor person, and let's just say that everyone speaks the same language, um, and then you have someone who's from North Korea and someone who's from America. So you've got sort of two extremes in terms of the nationality and in terms of the class. I think it would be easier for the American and North Korean to find common ground and get along than the class divide. That's sort of my reasoning. I had a gut reaction to class, and that's where I think it's maybe coming from. I think it's a lot more difficult to bridge class divides. If someone has had a silver spoon in their mouth all their life, they've lived in absolute luxury, they've had baths of money, and they're so cut off, and they live in just such amazing wealth. And someone who has had to work 10 million hours each week just to get the basics of like corn flour or the absolute basic food and water. I just think it's really difficult to bridge that gap. Whereas I think like nationalities, as long as the language barrier is taken down, people connect pretty easily on a human level. And I think you're more likely if you to walk into a sort of metropolitan cosmopolitan sort of scenario, so like a normal city like London or New York or even like Kathmandu or Sydney, you could easily walk into a bar or something and you'd see people from all different nationalities sort of getting on, and that would be that you wouldn't even bat an eyelid. But if you saw obviously it's difficult to tell class by someone's looks, but if you overheard and you saw someone who had extreme wealth and someone who didn't, I think that would be strange.
Hmm. I can see where you're coming from here. I think the rationale behind the way I'm going is because like you can take poor here and compare that to poor in South Sudan,
Hmm.
but the two aren't even on the same scale.
No, no, of course not. If you're poor
Like
here,
yeah,
you can still get clean water if you want to.
realistically, you've probably still got water, you've probably still got shelter, you've probably still got food, you've probably still got general safety.
Well,
You don't
let's
need to
well
worry about.
let's say the homeless then, because that's the poorest. So homeless and they don't have, but they still, yeah. No, I completely agree. I don't think there's anyone that would disagree with that. Like, if you're poor, if you're in the poor section of uh, Sudan, or you're in the poor section of England, then the Sudan poor people are just much worse off.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we don't have poor people here and issues to address there. We do, and I think do need to address our wealth gap that seems to be growing. But it's just generally like national scale, like your nationality will define roughly, it'll at least define your min and max
Yeah.
of what class or how wealthy you are, whatever.
So it says people are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. And I think the way I'm taking that is that people are still divided and what keeps them more divided than the other. And I think class keeps people more divided. So that's
I,
why I would go with it, agree.
I would go disagree because I think your nationality plays a major part in your class and how wealthy you are.
Yeah, but then it's the class where you get the issue.
Right, but I think it's defined by the nationality more so. Well,
Hmm.
like the nationality is defining the class, which is what I think divides people more often.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, fair enough. So you're disagree and I'm agree on that one.
Yup.
Cool. Okay. Um, Number 9. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Um,
I don't agree with this at all.
okay.
I'm not an economist by any means. Um, and I definitely think you can't let inflation get out of hand. I think was it Zimbabwe that had that problem, where they just kept printing money and inflation rose so drastically that the money was essentially worthless. Um, but I definitely think unemployment is more of a concern than rapid inflation. I think they're both important, but if you've got a shitload of unemployed people, there's something ethically wrong there.
Sure. I mean, this is going to be very difficult for us because neither of us are an economist and we don't know the ins and
Yeah,
outs.
I don't know jack shit about the economy.
I would probably, just on a gut, I'm not going to be able to speak at length why, but just on a gut and what I've read and my vague understanding of inflation, I would probably agree with this because unemployment is a ground level problem, which obviously is very important. But I think when your inflation is steady and you have a steady economy in terms of monetary policy, I think it's called, then you're a lot more stable to then go from there. Whereas if you've got everyone employed, but your inflation's out of control, then it doesn't matter if you're employed because everything's going to cost a huge amount in the supermarkets,
Hmm.
which might then mean it doesn't matter how much you paid. Like yeah, I just think so that I mean it's like a monkey trying to describe the universe.
Yeah,
Like
I was thinking that, like, man, I don't know enough to disagree with you.
yeah, no, but yeah. So I just on that gut instinct, I'd probably go with agree. But I think both of us could easily be proven wrong by someone who knew even just a little bit more than us. Um, cool. So that's one where we need a not sure option. Um, cool. Okay. So next question. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation?
So I'd agree with this. It's not. I wouldn't say it's a strong agree. It's like a soft to mid-level agree, and that's because there are corporations who do a lot of voluntary work for the environment off their own back. However, there's also corporations that take the piss and don't.
Mm.
Um, so I definitely don't think you can trust all corporations. So I think yeah, regulation, legislation. That's how you tackle corporations and make sure they stay, environmentally conscious.
Mm. This is probably this is my first strong opinion.
Hmm.
I think I strongly agree.
I had a feeling you might.
Yeah, yeah. I think we sort of have a bit of a difference in terms of regulation. But yeah, I just don't trust. You just can't trust anyone to, even individuals. You can't just trust them to that they're definitely going to go by their best nature. You know, if that was the case during coronavirus lockdown, they would have just released information and said, okay, it's best if everyone stays at home, but they wouldn't have said you have to do this. They wouldn't have police out trying to enforce it. And I think with something as abstract as the environment, because I care quite a lot about the environment, but I've realised one of the biggest challenges is if it doesn't affect people in the here and now, on by and large, people just don't care. Like they're just
That's so true.
they're and rightly, well, I don't know if it's rightly or wrongly, but people just care about getting money, feeding their family if they've got kids and they've got a family to feed, having good relationships with their friends, and just the general day-to-day life. Most people just want to get on with their life, and so the whole thing about the environment, they might watch a documentary, they might say, oh, that's interesting, but they're not going to make drastic changes unless you really make them. And I think regulation, well, on the individual, that means hitting their pocket, which is, stuff like, I don't know, this is just a random idea, but like if you taxed meat massively, then because meat is such a contributor to climate change, then if you tax meat massively, then people are less inclined to buy meat. But yeah, I think in general, especially corporations and businesses are there to make money. Like I do agree with that, and I don't think we should be imposing that businesses shouldn't, because that's the function of what they are. If they're making a lot
But
of
it
money.
shouldn't be. That shouldn't be all they are. That they are there to make money. That shouldn't be their only initiative.
Yeah, but there will be companies out there that is their own initiative. So that's
Yeah.
where the government steps in and they go, well, you can have your own initiative, but if you do this, then we're going to lock you up or we're going to fine you. So I think that's why I'm a big believer in regulations to a point, because it stops the selfish people getting their way.
Yeah, I think it's good to regulate things like this, because you definitely can't trust all big corporations, and you've got to appreciate any large corporation is going to have a lot of people on it, which means they're going to be able to push and bend rules a little. So you've really got to be on point with them.
Yeah. Okay. So you went with agree with that. I'll go strongly agree.
Yeah.
Number 10. Because corporations cannot be trusted. Oh no, I just said that. Number 11. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, is a fundamentally good idea. So just to give this a bit of context, I believe this is a Karl Marx quote. And Karl Marx started Marxism, communism, and this whole idea of sharing all the wealth out. So there are some people who say he had a lot of good ideas, but in practice they don't really work.
So I wasn't aware this was a Karl Marx quote.
I think it is. I don't know if you want to do a quick Google the quote.
Well, I'll say my piece on it first. So
Okay.
I am strongly to disagree on this.
Wow.
The reason with that being is to each according to his need. That's not an objective thing. if I talk about what really are strict needs, everyone gets one pair of clothes. Everyone gets, the maybe a 2 meter squared apartment. Everyone gets their water and food ration for the day. What you need, of course, disabled people need more support, and a lot of other people, but generally, your need, if everyone's need is the same, which generally it is, people are going to push for more. And then what do you do with the surplus?
Mm. Yeah, and while you were talking, I just remembered something you said to me in second year of uni. I
Wow, that's a good memory.
Yeah, well, it stuck with me, but I think I was I was having philosophical thoughts or whatever, and I called you, and I remember where I was when I called you, um, and I was asking about like if something works in theory but doesn't work in practice, is it a good theory? And like, should we still be trying to do that theory? And and you said, well, if it doesn't work in practice, it's a bad theory. And it was along those sort of lines. And I know it seems simple, but for me, it was like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. And I think that sort of ties in with this because I would say it's a fundamentally good idea. As in, like, if someone said that in a speech, or one of
Yeah.
my friends came up with me and said this thought they had, I go, wow, that's a great idea. But does it work in practice? And I think that's what you're getting at. Is you're saying it doesn't work in practice because you can't define each according to his need.
Yeah, there's also more to it. I would add on top as well. So it's the idea that, hey, everyone gives as good as they can, as much as they can, and then everyone gets the same. That doesn't exactly influence people to want to push for more. And I do believe some element of competition, hard work, pushing yourself. I do believe people need a little bit of motivation for that. I'm the same, and that
Mm.
comes in many forms.
Mm.
But I think to say, hey, different people put in different levels of work, whatever effort, whatever, but everyone gets the same. I think that's negating the people that really want to like Jeff Bezos, and I understand there's a lot of controversy surrounding him and his business practices, but Jeff Bezos has accomplished a lot, and I do really feel like Amazon as a company is making the world a lot. It's improving our quality of life quite greatly, and what we are capable of. They also run services and whatnot, which a lot of people use, which a lot of people aren't aware of at all. And I don't think there's any way Jeff Bezos makes Amazon the Goliath it is today in the Soviet Union, for example.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. He also doesn't
So
pay
yeah,
pay tax properly, but
well, yeah, and that's there are some things about him that I'm definitely not for, but I don't know if he's done more good than bad, but it definitely seems to me like he's had a big impact, a big positive impact on the world.
okay. Which in some people's eyes is a very controversial point, but I
It is.
I do definitely see where you're coming from, and that's the whole argument about free market capitalism and socialism and communism, isn't it? It's in a free market, innovators and people can thrive, and then if they thrive enough that they're making lots of stuff for people and they really want this stuff, and that's providing good to all the people that are buying it and want it.
Yeah,
Um,
don't get me wrong. I do think we've gone the other way, where it's like, hey, everyone does what they can, and everyone the higher you are, the more you get, the more you can keep, and the lower you are, the less you give, and it's or the less. Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying here. Yeah, we need to tax the super wealthy more. Long story short, because it is madness that Jeff Bezos pays very little tax.
mm,
That's a lot of money economies are losing,
sure, yeah,
and governments are losing, and if I don't know what the value is of money the UK loses to corporations not paying their fair share of tax, but just imagine like if we just bought all that extra money, whatever giant value that is. Imagine that just went into the NHS, that just went into education, that just went into schooling, that
mm,
just went into improving the community, that just went into negative income tax. Yeah, they've got to pay more, but I totally strongly disagree with this statement.
that's really interesting. Yeah, I would say I softly agree. Um, I don't.
You would softly agree to this.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
wow.
What? Why you wow? Because I'm softly, or because it's agree?
I'm surprised you agree. Like for me, this is a fundamentally bad idea
Okay, yeah.
because it doesn't work.
Um. Okay, so this is why I softly agree. So from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. So I think one place I disagree with you is when you said most people have the same fundamental needs. And I think I would disagree. I
How
think
so?
because we're so varied in everything, our genes, how we're brought up, and everyone has strengths and weaknesses that are so different. Um, and yeah, of course, we're creatures, and we need food and water, and we need um, shelter of some sort, all that sort of stuff. But that doesn't mean we treat human beings like animals, and I think there are needs beyond that. I think, especially disabled people, people who have grown up in a really uh, violent or oppressive household, um, their needs are going to be different and possibly greater than the average person. Um, and I
They
think
are. My issue is, oh, sorry, I'm going to let you finish your point before I
no,
jump
no,
in.
no, no, yo, no, jump in. That's fine.
My problem is, I agree that, well, I definitely think that generally the average human being who's relatively healthy, relatively free of disabilities and whatnot, I definitely think most of them have different needs. But they're what they actually need is very little, realistically. Or you could also see that as, well, everyone needs a lot, and then how does the economy work there? The problem is who gets to decide what people's needs are will
Well,
always be prone to bias.
well, yeah, and that is a an interesting question. Who decides what everyone's needs are? Um, I think human rights are a good guideline. Um,
I think human rights are really good. I definitely think I don't, well, here's the thing. I don't think you need human rights. I think you deserve human rights,
so I guess it depends on the definition of need. So
which is the big problem here, because whoever gets to define that word dictates what each person gets.
sure.
Because this still comes back down to the Animal Farm book, where the pigs choose who gets what, and the pigs take everything for themselves.
Mm, mm.
So yeah, I'm strongly disagree on this one.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I'm just thinking about it. It's
I can kind of see your argument where if you could get that objective, maybe a computer decides who needs what, maybe someone creates a
well,
very
that's what the
intelligent AI, but
that's what
then surely that's still got to be biased.
well that's what the welfare state is, which I think is probably what we're talking about indirectly. Do you think that's fair? Because with when you're on benefit, so for example, I've been on benefit, so I've had a first-hand experience, which helps in terms of the discussion. And obviously, it's different the process in every country, but in England, um, you have to. There's a lot of forms you have to fill out. There's a lot of information you have to give, and in that information, they decide. So for example, they look at your savings. So depending on how much savings you got, that will determine how much you get. Whether you're living at home, so you're supported by your parents, or whether you are living in a flat and need to pay rent. There's a lot of criteria that come into account so that's what I would say the welfare state is for. It's to determine who needs, because it does come down to money. Like with your needs, like money can buy pretty much everything you need, apart
Well,
from
I
social interactions and stuff.
I disagree. I think humans actually need more than just money, and I think a lot of people fool themselves into thinking it is all about monetary needs. But getting back to the point, I get the money that comes from the state. I do believe in rubber banding. I do believe in supporting the people who are struggling the most. Um, my issue with this is that it's, hey, we take from everyone whatever they can give, and then we just dish it out and give everyone according to what his or her needs are. But it's like the problem is still who is defining this, and then why don't the people who are pushing hard, working more, got better ideas, why aren't they getting a little more for their extra effort or an extra result?
Yeah, yeah. I think I've just reread it, and I've actually read. I think I've interpreted the first part wrong, or I've reread it, and now I think it differently. So it's from each according to his. But I think I was seeing that right. So now I see that as the people who can give, they give as much as they possibly can, and then that goes to the people who need it. Right, I understand. Right, I guess. Yeah, it is a tricky one. Um, because yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Like if someone works so hard and they put so much of themselves into it, like and I think it too much, especially on left wing sort of politics, we see the people that have worked hard and got really high, that we see them as, oh, well, they were privileged, and it's not always the case.
Yeah,
Um,
like sometimes it is. Definitely, some people are
yeah,
born with advantages over some people. Some people are born with disadvantages. Some people turn those disadvantages into benefits. Some people turn those advantages into disadvantages.
yeah, yeah,
I definitely think the more wealthy your parents are, probably the more likely you are to you're going to have a better education, have more knowledge, be able to
yeah,
be capable of more. But and it's just the ending to this is this quote fundamentally a good idea? I don't think so. I don't think the idea of taking everything society can give and then distributing that amongst people's needs, which really isn't a black and white thing. I don't think that'll work for me. It negates healthy competition.
yeah,
I don't think you'd see like big leaps forwards in progress with this.
yeah. Because like what you're saying, if you work really hard and you get all this stuff, and you're like, right, I want to treat my wife or my partner to something nice. It doesn't have to be a fancy new car. It could just be a bigger house because we're getting cramped with our kids, or whatever it is that is nice and is going to improve their life. They work really hard. They maybe built a company from the ground up, and then when they've done all that and they're actually making enough where they can make their lives a bit better, it's taken away from them, and they say that all that hard work is actually been given to someone else,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I think most people would agree that the first part of that is not okay. The giving, taking away from people that have genuinely worked really hard to get that, and just taking that away without any of their consent or say. But I think a lot of people would agree with the second part. See, that's where I think the second
I would
part.
disagree with the second part as well.
So giving to each according to their need. Right. So the part you agree or disagree with that is we can't define need.
Yeah, the problem is someone is choosing who gets what, how much of what they get, and that will always be biased. Whoever you have in that position, you'll get a different result.
Yeah, but you have to have that anyway. You do that in your own life. You're like, if you have a certain amount of money to give away to charities, then you make that decision of which charity you give it to and which need it most. And these institutions like the welfare state, like I said, they have that set up. It obviously doesn't work very well, and there's a hell of a lot wrong with our
Not here,
welfare
it
state.
doesn't. Yeah.
But in theory, they assess as accurately as they can how much this person needs, and then they give according to their need.
Yeah, but that's also they're getting. This also means if everyone gets just what they need, they're also getting the bare minimum,
Yeah,
which is what need is.
sure. Yeah.
And yeah, the bias is still a problem for me, and I don't think we should be aiming for everyone gets what they need. It's such a subjective thing.
But in
I
theory,
don't
like,
think we're going to come to a compromise here.
no. Well, like in
Well,
theory,
Miles said the problem with this is the only times I've ever seen this enacted, it's been terrible.
no, because it is enacted. It's enacted in all developed countries. The second part, I mean, and the first part to a lesser extent, obviously, because taxes, graduated taxes. If you're richer, you get taxed more. Um, the second part is definitely enacted in all countries, in our country and all European countries, and any country that has any sort of welfare state. They have a system set up to give people money who, in theory, need it most. And if you don't set that base layer of who needs that, as arbitrary as it may be, if you throw that out the window and go, well, we can't decide who needs what, then no one, then the people who do need it are never going to get what they need
Well, in
because
this country, homeless people need like proper shelter, but they seem to scarcely get that.
yeah,
I live in Newcastle, and I see homeless people everywhere, so they don't get what they need here. And the the more communistic countries that have attempted this, there has been a massive gap between rich and poor, and generally the
oh yeah,
vast majority of people are poor.
yeah, sure.
But hell, it's all good because they've got what they need.
No, because then, like you say, it's in those countries the theory's flawed, and you need to hone the theory through the practice. And I think in this country, it like I say, it's heavily flawed. Like you can point to other countries which have a much more effective welfare state than ours, but that doesn't mean you tear down the welfare state and go, well, we can't decide who needs what. So, but because there would be a hell of a lot more homeless people if we didn't have a welfare state. And I think the more effective a welfare state can be, the better they can be at identifying who needs what and giving them exactly what they do need. Then the better the society will be, and the less homeless people there will be, and things like that.
I also don't. I don't know. Part of me also doesn't think that the state shouldn't be required like giving stuff for people who are perfectly able to work but realistically lazy. We're talking about how people get money from the government. I know I know too many people that do exploit that system on our end, and I don't think it's ever, because this whole idea of need is subjective. I don't think there's ever any way to stop that being exploitable.
Yeah,
And I
but
don't like the idea of, yeah, I don't know this. I'm a strongly disagree here. I don't think you should just give everyone according to their needs. I don't think that's fair distribution of resources.
then how do people get what they need? How else can it be done?
Through work, through effort.
Yeah, but
Don't get me wrong. Some people, I
if you
definitely
grow up in a
think role.
situation where you are just really disadvantaged from the get go, from your genes, from the way you grew up, like saying like hard work and just own effort is just it's pointless, really.
I also don't like the idea of stopping need. Like for the state man, there's a charity. I think, are they called Special Effects? I think they're called Special Effects, and they try and get things made so that people with quite severe physical or mental disabilities can play video games.
Yeah,
And I don't think that's a need, but I think that's a great thing to strive for and to push for.
yeah,
So I don't think it's the role of the state to dish out what everyone needs. I think it's the aim, or should be the aim or the objective of the state, to balance the scales between rich and poor a little. So that's the people that have earning way more money, that's taking a bit more from them, and the people who had disadvantaged upbringings, maybe have disabilities as well, that's giving them a little bit more.
yeah. But how do you give it to them? Surely you have to, once you've taken that money from the rich, then how do you give it to the poor? Surely you have to have a system where you deduce what their needs are.
Right, right, but there's still. I don't think it shouldn't be based on need. It should be based on what can be given. It is a big part of it.
What do you mean? So,
Like if you've got
the money's been taken. That's the first half. The money's been taken. It's sitting there. How do you give that to the right people?
so then now you're. I don't understand. So now you're giving it to everyone. Well, now you're just giving money to people, which I'm actually not against. I do believe the negative income tax is a good way to
So
go.
what you say? So basically, you said like you. I'm just trying to see where we disagree because you're saying you're up for taking money away from in tax and stuff like that away from rich people who can afford to do it.
No, I'm for taking a little more from them. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you got that. So we agree on that. That's fine. Um, what are you then doing with that money that's going to help balance the scales, as you say?
Well, you're going to give it to people who are a little more disadvantaged.
And how do you find out who those people are?
I don't know how you find out who's disadvantaged, but I don't like the idea of stopping to people's needs. I think humans have come a long way because they strive for more. We keep making technology, improving tools. No other animal does that, and humans are humans because they don't stop in need.
Okay. I think probably where we're getting caught is the word need.
Yeah, because it says to each according to his need.
Yeah,
It also
no.
says his, not their or his her, but
Yeah, yeah, it's
I'll ignore that for now.
sexist. I guess yeah. I'll leave it there because yeah, I think we are getting caught on that.
I think we're going in circles. Yeah.
Because what you just said, I agree with you. Like giving out to the people who are disadvantaged, but I would say that is according to their need because they need more because they're disadvantaged. But yeah,
But I can see why you think that because you're a relatively good person and you do want people in need to get assistance.
hmm,
My problem comes in is if whoever's making this decision on what need is isn't you, and that person has arguably too much power.
okay, okay. Well, yeah,
So just to summarize, for this, strongly disagree.
okay, yeah. We've actually gone over quite a bit by the normal time for an episode, but which is fine. We were on a roll, and I didn't want to cut it off, and I thought we were really getting into stuff meaty there. But I think probably it's a natural end now. We've realised where we disagree, roughly, and it doesn't look like either of us are going to budge for now. So,
No. So sorry. Which one? Are you still agree for this?
I would be again. It's more the second half of it because I've realised the first half of it.
But it's saying the whole thing is fundamentally a good idea.
I think the whole thing, yeah, and that doesn't mean that communism and Marxism as a whole is a good idea because it's clearly not. But I think it fundamentally, again, it's not a strong agree. It's not like I'm full, but I would say slightly agree.
That's interesting.
And I think, yeah, like what we were talking about, I think that's just where sort of the differences lie. Maybe that's why I'm slightly more left wing on the scale. That it might be one of the points where I'm slightly more left wing. But yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah. Cool. All right, so we'll leave it there. You enjoy that?
I did. This was as a bit of context. It was Dan's idea to do this. I thought it was a great idea because I've done this test a couple of different times with varying different results, but it's just like my own thinking. I'm not. This gives us a chance to like bounce kind of debate against each other.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Oh, sweet. Well, yeah, we've got a lot more questions to go. To be honest, we've barely skimmed the surface. So
Part two coming
yeah,
soon.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll anyone listening expect a part two. But yeah, before we go, I'll just say to anyone listening, please feel free to continue this conversation by commenting with any thoughts you have, or contacting me to come on the show as a guest. There's sort of been a bit of a drop off at the moment in terms of the people I've been contacting, and I'd really like to get as many diverse guests on as possible in terms of their opinions and their experiences and their views. So please get in contact. But just to summarize sort of some of the stuff we've been talking about, we're talking about sort of how much the state can or should have control over who gets what. We've been talking about what else have we been talking about? To look at my list. We have been talking about class and nationality, how that divides people, and international law. Yeah, just stuff. We're just talking about all those questions. But yeah, they're very big philosophical and political questions. I'd love to hear other points of views, and actually, especially on the inflation one. If there's anyone out there who knows a lot about inflation, I would love to have you on and just get a bit more involved in economics. And I think that would be really interesting because me and Nick don't really have a clue. But yeah, I'll just wrap it up by saying thank you very much, Nick.
Thanks for having me. One thing I would say, anyone listening to the video, the last one, me and Dan couldn't really see eye to eye on. If you think either I'm wrong or Dan's wrong, or you've got a different point of view, put that in the comments, because if someone could prove me wrong on this, I would love it. I mean, I doubt it would happen, but I would love it.
That is a challenge laid down. Brilliant. Well, yeah, thanks for that, Nick. And yeah, I'll speak to you next time.
Always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
Cheers. There's something else I'd like to say to any listeners, all three of you. This podcast is an ongoing process. It's an ongoing experiment. I'm trying things out and seeing what works and what doesn't. And so any feedback on this or other episodes will be really appreciated. I don't want this podcast to just be for my own enjoyment. The goal is for it to benefit people in some way. And constructive feedback is the best way to know if this goal is being achieved. If I don't know something's rubbish, then I'll just keep producing rubbish. If I don't know something's good, then I'll just stop producing anything good. And also, if you think of anyone that you know that would be a good guest for me to chat to, then please let me know. I would love the opportunity to speak to a wide range of people about an even wider range of subjects. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope you continue the conversation. Bye for now.